Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. And this week on the show, we'll be breaking down all of the exciting Lucasfilm publishing announcements from New York Comic-Con. Couple of pretty exciting books to talk about. We'll also pay tribute to a pop culture legend, and we'll answer some more of your questions in another iconic edition of our beloved segment, Ask the SWU. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld. It's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It's good to be back. And yes, if you can believe it, we were I remember we talked about New York Comic Con last week. There was already stuff happening, and if you can believe it, more stuff happened, and there was a lot. It's kind of been a busy week for Star Wars news. Not anything like huge, earth-shattering, but some pretty exciting stuff happening. And then we have, obviously there's some pretty sad news to talk about too. But we'll do that in due time. But a lot to get into tonight. I'm very looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the start of the show, at least, Ben, it's just you and me. Chris will probably join us.
You never know. You never know who's going to show up these days.
I imagine Hannah is still recovering from her birthday, so I'm not.
Not
banking on a
just
surprise.
Because it's your birthday, you think you get the week off. Hey, I see how it is, Raeside.
I took my birthday week off as well, so I don't know what you're talking about. But Ben, just before the show, I was just pulling up, StarWars.com to have all of the, publishing news right in front of me so I can look at it from the source. And when I went to StarWars.com, when you go there now, there's a splash page that's all about Halloween. They're getting into the spooky spirit and all that. And one of the things that they encourage you to do is to take their quiz to find out which Star Wars character you should be for Halloween. Now, in previous years, we've talked about which Star Wars character we would be, but I think we should let the experts at StarWars.com tell us what characters we should each be for Halloween. So I've got the quiz up. I've got it open in two separate tabs so we can both do this. And let's see where we get. There's 10 questions and we'll figure this out.
Are you going to answer for me?
Yes, I'll answer for you.
Okay.
So I will tell you what your answer is. Don't worry.
I hope so.
So first and foremost, how much time would you like to spend getting ready? How much time do you want to spend getting ready for your costume, Ben? Very little, a few days, a couple of weeks, or I started planning last year. And for reference, they use a picture of Queen Amidala from episode 1 to give you a sense of how much planning do you want to do.
So planning for my costume.
For your costume, yes.
I would like to say like already planning, but I know it's going to be like a week or something like that.
So let's call that a few days. Let's go a few days for Ben. I'm going to say very little. I don't want to plan. I want to just have it ready. I want to just throw it together, whatever we got. All right. How do you feel about wearing masks? And this is like Star Wars masks. We're not getting into that 2020 stuff again.
No, please God, no.
Stop it. How do you feel about wearing masks? Do you love them? Do you want one you can remove? You'd rather wear a helmet, or they're not for you?
One I can remove. Look, I'm good. I could, it's good to hide sometimes. It's good to blend in sometimes, especially on Halloween to get into character, but also like it gets hot under there.
Yeah, fair. I'm gonna go with I love them because they do hide what you are thinking. And I know I said we weren't going to get into 2020 mask stuff, but when we stopped wearing masks, I did have to readjust that, like, oh, right, people can see my face. I can't grimace at them all the time. I can't make faces in response to things that they're saying. All right, I better. So I love them. I want one I'll wear all the time. All right. Who do you want to celebrate Halloween with? Your family, your children, your friends, or all alone?
I mean, I would like to be my friends, but probably let's just say friends. I know it will probably be all alone, but with my friends.
They're friends. All right. I'm gonna say my family because I always like going back to my parents' house to distribute the candy on the 31st. I always like to I had so much fun trick-or-treating as a kid that I like to, pay it back to the current generation. And yes, when a kid comes to the door in a Star Wars costume, they do get extra candy. Which color, Ben? This is, I know, a question that you put a lot of thought into. Dominate your closet. Black tones, it's a rainbow, or primary colors?
Again, I wish it was a rainbow, but it's mostly black. And that's my least favorite color, but that's just a fact. Because most Star Wars shirts are black, and I have mostly Star Wars shirts.
I went through a phase a few years ago where I wouldn't buy a Star Wars shirt if it was black.
And that's
like it had to be like red, green, blue, something else. I've since gone back to just buying whatever looks good and have since wound up with a lot more black t-shirts. So I am with you there. Black shirts, black clothing dominates my wardrobe. What is your favorite Halloween activity? Bobbing for apples, decorating pumpkins, trick-or-treating, or sitting on the porch? Apparently that's a Halloween activity. Just chilling there. Just hey, what are you doing this Halloween? No, I'm just sitting on the porch. I'm just giving out candy. No, I'm just sitting on the
last
porch.
The last time I did my watch as the door greeter for Halloween, and I sat at home. I sat on my porch and I played Skywalker Saga on my Switch, and nobody came the entire night. Halloween's not big in our neighborhood. But I do what I want to do.
It's too much of a devil worshipping activity. down there in Mississippi.
I'm not gonna lie, that's part of it. But let's not get into that.
Right,
the whole thing to open can of worms there. But what I really want to do is like genuinely, like, I loved trick-or-treating so much, and if I could get away with it now, I totally would.
All right, so you're going trick-or-treating. That would also be my answer, but just for the sake of being different, I'll say decorating pumpkins, which is an activity I've not done for a couple of years, but I feel like maybe this year, this is the time to get back into it.
Yeah.
All right. What is the perfect piece of Halloween decor? A jack-o'-lantern named Lewis, a black cat, dancing skeletons, or ghosts?
I mean, you got to go with Lewis, right? I mean, that's the answer right there.
It's hard to argue with Lewis. I will say I'm not the biggest cat person. I've always been much more of a dog person. I don't dislike cats, but they don't.
You monster.
They don't hold the same appeal to me. Like last year when you were encouraging Hannah to adopt her cat, I was sitting there in the corner going, "No, don't do it." No, I was just sitting there going, "I have no opinion on this." But 2 years ago, when I was handing out the Halloween candy at my parents' house, I'm sitting on the front porch, and I'm handing out the candy, and my neighbor's black cat comes and sits next to me, and I'm like, "This is very on brand for tonight." So I'm gonna go with a black cat.
Yeah, and look, when you are out adopting like cats or whatever else, like if you go to a shelter, pick the black cat because of Halloween, because of weirdo superstitious people.
Yeah.
They are afraid of black cats. There's no such thing as luck. Can I remind you of that and say that pick the black cat because they're actually the best cats.
Yeah, it's like Obi-Wan says, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. All right. How scary do you want to look, Ben? Ghoulish, fearsome, not scary at all, or you prefer something pretty?
I mean, ghoulish, so everyone stays away. Scare everyone away.
Ghoulish. I am tempted to, channel that stormtrooper in the Rise of Skywalker who sees the Knights of Ren and either says goals or ghouls, and I'm not sure which. Neither of which makes any sense. But I actually prefer not scary Halloween costumes. I like funny ones. I like, ones that are, where there's it's more of a joke. So I won't say that's pretty necessarily. So I'll say not scary at all. All right. What type of character do you usually choose to dress up as, just in your day-to-day life?
Right.
A stormtrooper, a Jedi, a classic monster, or something punny?
I mean, I do love a good pun. So,
yeah,
that's kind of my style.
I've been trying to avoid answering the same as you, but I'm going the same as you here. I'm going for something punny.
The same mind.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite Halloween treat? Candy, witch's brew, caramel apples, or apple cider donuts?
Oh God, that is okay. This is the first one that's befuddled me.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I don't see Kit Kat.
I guess that's the candy category.
I suppose.
I mean, candy is like that's probably the stock answer. That's the most diverse answer. Although donuts, I'll go with donuts.
Yeah, you can go with donuts. I just out of curiosity, I'm going witch's brew.
What is it?
Yeah, I assume it's a beverage of some kind, and I'm gonna trust that it's all right. Okay, final question. Right. What are you giving out at your house? Candy, apples, toothbrushes, or books?
Don't you just love it when you go out trick-or-treating and someone, instead of giving you candy or something, so they give you a toothbrush?
I know.
That's the best houses. What are you, a dentist?
Probably.
Of course, candy. Good Lord. Give the canned candy, for crying out loud.
All right. I'm going to say books because you people need to read more. So no, honestly,
it's fair. It's fair.
Like you're going to get so much candy, right, on Halloween. And I can't imagine being my younger self and like going to a house. And especially if they were giving out a Star Wars book, like if somebody handed me, I don't know, the courtship of Princess Leia, I'd be really excited. So I'm going to say books. All right, Ben, are you ready for the results? Are you ready to know who you're going to dress as?
I suppose.
All right, so your Halloween costume, drum roll, please, is Kylo Ren. According to StarWars.com, it's time to finish what Darth Vader started as one of the most iconic costumes and longtime Halloween favorites. As Kylo Ren, you can march door to door in the name of the First Order and more candy. But first, make sure that you won't be celebrating with any Han Solos. That would just be awkward. Now that your costume is settled, find out which Star Wars character you should take trick-or-treating. We'll do that quiz next week. As for me,
oh boy,
apparently I should be Grogu.
Oh, wow.
According to StarWars.com, you prefer to have your Halloween fun with friends, which makes dressing as Grogu the perfect addition to any Mandalorian costume clan. Your favorite Mando may even agree to shuttle you around all night in a satchel or pram if you're lucky, or maybe IG-12 is around here somewhere. All right. So, look, I do have a friend named Din. Maybe he will carry me.
This is true.
For the night. True. I think we've settled that. So Din, be ready October 31st. I'm expecting to be carried around. All right.
Call Hannah and get some advice on face painting. Get that green face paint. Get some big ears. You got it.
Hannah has sort of mastered the art of not doing a scary costume necessarily, but doing one that is still terrifying. So And regular viewers of the Raeside will know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right. That's I don't know. Was that entertainment? It seemed like a good idea. I had fun. Ben, did you have fun?
Of course I did. Of course I
Okay,
did.
good.
Who cares?
Okay,
Who cares what anyone else thinks? We had fun.
Exactly. All right. Before we dive into the bulk of the show, just a couple of reminders. Make sure you punch the subscribe button to never miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like to listen. During the show, you can super chat with us. That way you can jump the line for our Ask the SWU. And if you enjoy what we do and you want to leave us a little like a little tip, like make a little financial incentive for us to keep making shows. Not that we need it, but you can become a channel member. As I say, we're not one of those cool channels that gives you anything for doing that. We just expect you to pay us for all of our hard work for the last 15 years.
Poor us.
Yeah, right. Also, between the shows, make sure you join our Discord to keep the conversation going. Follow us on social media at the SWU and check out the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including The Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and The Tractor Beam. Now, we're talking a lot about books, so if you enjoy what we're talking about books-wise here, perhaps check out Ion Cannon and The Tractor Beam for more regular book talk. Okay, so we'll start with some sad news. We learned this week that legendary movie poster artist Drew Struzan passed away at the age of 78. George Lucas released a statement about Struzan's passing, saying Drew was an artist of the highest orders. His illustrations fully captured the excitement, tone, and spirit of each of my films. His artwork represented his creativity through a single illustrated image, opened up a world of vivid color, even at a glance. I was lucky to have worked with him time and again. Struzan was first brought into the Star Wars world doing the special editions posters, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he did the prequel posters and then did like a special Force Awakens poster that was a D23 giveaway, which was very interesting because it was one of the first times that we saw a character holding that Skywalker lightsaber. We'd seen it in the trailers, but we hadn't seen anybody actually holding it. So it was pretty interesting and pretty exciting back then. He also did a whole bunch of the Indiana Jones movies, a lot of the iconic movie posters that you remember from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Odds are Drew Struzan had a hand in that. Just a singular talent, and was able to create really iconic images that gave you a sense of what the movie was, captured the spirit of it while still being its own thing. And so, really just, I'm sad that we won't see any more of his work.
Yeah, it's been great to see a celebration of his work over the past few days because he's got stuff that I hadn't really realized, like all the Star Wars book novel covers that he did. Like there's so many of those that I'm like, oh wow, okay, because going back especially into the late the 90s, early 2000s, there's a lot of book covers that didn't look great back in the day, but like the best ones are like the ones that he did. And then you go further into doing all the original 6 films, just things. And then Back to the Future, every big movie seemingly back from the day, the great quote from Steven Spielberg talking about how there was pressure on him to make the movie as good as what Drew Struzan was going to make a poster and live up to that poster, because the poster was going to be great. It's like, with the Star Wars movies, like, oh, the John Williams score is going to be great. Whether or not the movie's good, like the poster was going to be magnificent regardless of how the movie was. And I'm sure there's quite a few movies that probably weren't as good as the poster, but that's neither here nor there. It's just, a legendary talent. And from all intents and purposes, a lot of people talk about how their experiences with him, how he was just such a nice person, who went out and did cons or whatever else. Obviously, was suffering from Alzheimer's the past 2 years, which really sucks.
The worst.
But definitely go go look at his website. Seriously, just go look and see, like, because it's hard to put into words, like, and to fathom like how much artwork he did. And he started out doing like album covers for, like, I think it was like Led Zeppelin or something, like some crazy big bands back in the day, and you could definitely like tell his signature of kind of art style that goes all the way back. So it's just beautiful stuff. Like any one of these I would be honored to have on my wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like I said, singular talents. And yeah, sad that we're not going to see anything more from him, and sad for him and his family and his friends. And, seeing the outpouring of love for him and his work, it's a reminder of the talent, or it's a reminder of the impact something, as trivial as a movie poster can make, when it's made with that level of care and integrity and talent. In this time when it seems that the go-to for any movie poster is to either, Photoshop it to death with stills, or to get AI to do it.
Yeah.
Here we are, mourning the legacy of somebody who sat there and painted these, beautiful, tableaus that have stuck with people. Because I don't know, name me an equally iconic movie poster, just one of these Struzen ones from the last 5 years, 10 years, right? Like it's very rare. It's very rare to see them come up. And yet you look at what Drew did, and it was just item after item, poster after poster is iconic.
Yeah, no disrespect to like a lot of the modern Star Wars posters, but like I think that first that which I think ended up being like one of his last Star Wars posters, that Struzen Force Awakens poster, like, is better than the actual poster that came with the movie, like, because it's just like that human touch. And not to say that like there aren't real humans photoshopping things, but it's different. And it's also, it feels, especially these days, feels very corporate, and like, this person has to be certain things. And then, in certain countries and certain markets, they're like, let's tone down and minimize this character's, appearance on this poster because of racism. So that happens a lot too. And so it's just, and you just look at the 6 posters, and all Drew Struzen's posters, they're just amazing. And then AI can't even come close to replicating this. I don't care how many Drew Struzen posters you feed into ChatGPT, they're never going to spit out another one of these.
The modern posters, like some of the like specialized posters, the ones that are like, exclusive to certain theaters, or the character ones have been pretty good. Yeah. But the main posters are always, they're just like visual, like nonsense. Like you can't see, they're not telling a story. They're just here's every character. Here's every character like together 2 or 3 times. Like, I get like, oh, okay, there's Anakin and Vader. Oh, weird. The 2 characters, like, no, okay, that makes sense. But everyone else is just like, they have to have something going on in the foreground. It's just, there's just too busy. And I think, And you look at like we have the posters that Drew Struzan did for the first 6 movies up on the screen. For people who are just listening, if you're watching, you can see this. You look at these posters, there is a lot going on in them. There's a lot, he packs a lot in there, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It still feels like it's telling a story. It's telling you something about the movie and what you can expect when you see it. Whereas, I feel like you look at the poster for The Force Awakens or The Rise of Skywalker, and you kind of know there's a Star Wars movie and all these characters are in it, but beyond that, you don't really get a sense.
I feel like with every, not to turn this into a giant, like, what posters we like discussion, because I want to keep this discussion, but like, I feel like with every new film we've gotten, there's always been a variant, like an IMAX poster or something that was done by a specific artist that was better than the actual poster. There's a lot of great artists that I really love that also do like their own interpretations of that I think are really great. And it's a shame we couldn't gotten more from Drew Struzan, but yeah, we will have so many posters to enjoy for many years. And I think each of these posters, like, they are the definitive posters for these movies. Like, it's crazy that like you go on Disney Plus and they have to make like a new art. Like, just use the Struzan art. Like, what are you doing?
God, yeah, that's a whole other topic. That you know what,
dumb.
Ben?
It's really dumb.
Could very easily draw a very short line from what you just said back to the helmets, but I'm not going to.
Oh God.
I'm not going to.
Does not go back there, please.
I'm not going to subject anybody to that again, but I could draw a very short line if I wanted to. All right, but yeah, so our thoughts and hearts are with Struzan's family and friends this week, and we're sorry to have lost him. And now for a somewhat awkward transition, let's talk about New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con was last weekend there in the Big Apple, home of the American League Division Series losing New York Yankees.
Oh wow! Listenership just going down.
Yeah, all the New York people are out. They're like, we wanted to talk about a Comic Con, but we're out. And as always, Lucasfilm's presence there primarily revolves around the books. New York is a big sort of epicenter for publishing in general, so they are all. It's very easy to get the authors and the publishers out to that event. Also, Lucasfilm, if it's not a celebration, doesn't seem to care to do anything other than books. It's like you get a Hasbro panel, you get a books panel, and you're lucky if you get anything after that. But an exciting range of announcements. We will roll through some of them, starting with the latest announcement of a new novel from, I guess it's not Del Rey anymore. What is it? Random House Worlds. Star Wars Legacy by Madeline Rue. This, according to StarWars.com, is an all-new adventure from best-selling author Madeline Rue. It will follow Rey and her new master Leia Organa on a quest to mend the storied Skywalker lightsaber. The book is slated to be released July 28th, 2026, and I believe they said something at the panel about this story taking them to Tython. Am I correct in that, or am I making that up?
You're not the first person that I heard talking about Tython recently, so I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Sounds right.
So it is going back.
I mean, it makes sense that like we've been to Tython in canon and Mandalorian, and it's a big player in like ancient Jedi lore.
Yeah, but this is an important story bridging the gap between Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. There's not a ton of time in there for stories, and we did get a few in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. There was the Resistance Reborn novel. Was a 4-part miniseries. So there's been a few stories in this era, but not a ton. There's still lots of potential here. And now that the story is finished, we know where the story ultimately goes in Rise. We know how Rey and Leia's story end, at least for now. And at Lucasfilm, they have a sense of where Rey's story is going next. It seems that they feel it's safe to return to the sequel era and start to fill in some more of these gaps and get the fans. This isn't really going to break through to the general public, but get the fans excited about this era again, so that when things start popping up on the screen in movies like Starfighter and the Rey movie, we'll be ready. People will be excited and open to this era, or the era beyond this one. I don't know. What do you think of this announcement, Ben?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is very exciting. I think obviously getting this book, pre 2019 would have been mind blowing. Like, it would have been crazy. Like we all wish we had like stuff like this, like there was all things are in sync, but that's not really possible. Like when they're making the movie, and that's why like it is great to now like everything is set in place. We know where everything goes. Now let's start to fill in those gaps. And I think the sequel trilogy is a ripe for the picking to have these type of books in there. And just the story perspective of like, you know, you take Rise of Skywalker, you know, there is a time jump. Unlike Force Awakens: The Last Jedi, there is some kind of time jump. It's kind of, I don't really actually know what the time jump is. I know it's certain, I think, unspecified time.
I think Abrams said a year, but it doesn't have to be a year. They could easily say it was 2 or 3.
Yeah, and then you have like the Clone Wars between Attack of the Clones and Apprentice. It's like 3 years, and it feels like 10. So like, you know, you can play with that. Also, how long is a year in a galaxy far, far away? Who the hell knows?
This is true.
So like, but like the implied of like, they like Leia was her master. Like Leia trained her seemingly, you know, and like she had a couple of lessons with Luke and then fought him, and then they were like together for like a minute, and then the rest of it was like that relationship is something that I think they, for all Rise of Skywalker's flaws, it's a movie that I think does Leia justice and does really, really well, especially considering what they had to work with. The fact that Carrie Fisher didn't film any scenes for that movie, but yet they were able to give her a really good performance, a really sizable, you know, well-feeling performance. Pulling all that back and going like, okay, what is actually going on, and adding more stuff to this. Obviously, it's a book. I'd love to see it in an animated series or a movie or whatever else. Like that would have been perfect, but we can't do that right now. I think this could be really, really interesting, and I want to believe one of my let's just say pet peeves about the Rise of Skywalker is they rebuilt the Skywalker saber. Why did you have to do that? Why could you just build it? I hope that they can actually win me over with this. Tell me the reason why they need to bring that, other than just nostalgia bait. Why do you need to just duct tape the lightsaber back together? Why did that need to happen? I want to know. Madeline Rowe, tell me, please. I'm curious.
Yeah. This is a book that I think because we're so starved of sequel era content, this I feel like takes on a larger feeling for me. Because as a general rule, the Star Wars books I like the best are the ones that are stories that are set in the Star Wars galaxy, but mainly feature new characters, or like the High Republic, like Alphabet Squadron, things like that. There's exceptions to that rule, like the Mask of Fear earlier this year, the Mon Mothma Bail Organa Saw Gerrera novel was amazing. But as a general rule, these sort of like in between movies books aren't usually my favorite because they are very limited in what they can do. And we also all have very specific ideas of who these characters are. And sometimes the author's interpretation of those characters doesn't always line up with our own, and it creates kind of an awkward feel for the story. But because there is almost literally nothing else, like this is the first time Rey is starring in an adult novel, right? Like she's had a couple of junior novels.
That's true.
But never something like this. She popped up in Resistance Reborn, but she's not like a main character in it. Because this is our first time getting to revisit this era, getting to dive back into these stories and maybe learn something new about them. It takes up, it rises, it's elevated in my sort of anticipation and excitement for it. So I am really looking forward to this book. It feels like must-read stuff for me, even though it is limited in what it can accomplish. And I do ultimately know that it leads to the Rise of Skywalker, where a lot of the decisions that were made in that movie are not my favorite. So like I don't hold out any sort of hope that it's going to fix the Rise of Skywalker, but I do hope that it's a fun adventure in this era with Rey, with other characters from this era, that, provides some new insight and some new takes and some new shading and detail to what we already know.
Yeah, I have a complicated feelings about certain books, because on one hand, I like the, like you're saying, like books that are centered on new characters. You can kind of get a feeling for them. If they're well written, then you are able to kind of dial into that thing and not have to worry about all the baggage of like, what do you know about the character? This is all done. Like, even though it's set within the confines of the original trilogy and after, like Lost Stars is like a great example of like, you really feel those characters.
Yeah, but they're also new characters. So even though that's in familiar environments and familiar time periods, you are getting something brand new. We didn't have prior relationships with those two, whose names I can't remember, even though I love that book.
Sienna Rhee and the dude. That's their names.
I didn't realize Jeff Bridges was in it.
Yeah. Okay. But what I was saying was, is that I do sometimes have trouble with new characters. I like really connecting with them. Just maybe it's my imagination, maybe it's my stupid brain that's like being able to fully visualize a character and like dial in on like seeing.
So we have. It sounds like, Ben, we have the opposite problem.
Maybe, but I do have your problem too, in the sense that if it's dealing with like a known commodity, a known character, like I can obviously visualize it. I know, you can hear their voices. I think it's very easy to do that. Even if you're doing an audiobook, you can kind of infer a lot of stuff. But also you tend to overanalyze it. I tend to be like, well, would this actually happen if this feels unrealistic? I don't feel like the character would say this. I don't think the characters would do this thing or go to this place. And why would this things? And, it tends to be a conflict of just like, it's just a different writer writing them in a different way. And it's just going to feel different. And you have to get used to that. That happens with movies. The characters, you have in the sequel trilogy, you have two different writers, sometimes playing against each other, writing all those characters, and sometimes it really flows, sometimes it doesn't, and you just kind of have to roll with it. So it is kind of this thing of, it is the double-edged sword of like, oh, it's familiar characters, but now I have an emotional interest in this. It's just like with anything of just like, you can't go in open-minded because these are characters that are near dear to heart that we're so familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking about posters, movie posters, and Star Wars posters. This cover for Legacy, fantastic.
Oh my God,
great cover. And like you compare it to some other recent book covers, like the Acolyte novel, the Vernestra one. I can't remember what it's called. Might be the worst cover in Star Wars history. Like it looks like the cover not final image, and somebody just took where it said cover not final off of it. This one, like, it really gives you a sense of this is a Rey and Leia adventure, but looming in the background is Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and this is kind of the trick that movie posters either can't do or don't want to do, which is,
oh, Ben, we've lost you. He said he was just about to tell us what the trick was with movie posters. He was like, the thing about movie posters, this is the trick. And then we didn't hear another word. And now we begin the classic Ben tries to fix his technology, which means gives us an opportunity to do this.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules.
This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
I wish the world could have seen what was on my screen, because not only every time we play the Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy theme, you miss out on various members of the host and crew dancing. But this week I've got dual screens going, and I've got our show on one half, and on the other half I have the Blue Jays game. And the Blue Jays just scored a run, and they were showing shots of the crowd of people dancing and celebrating the Jays taking a 4-1 lead. And it was perfectly in time with
God,
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy theme. It looked like they were dancing along with it. So I don't know. Maybe that's what they're playing out there in Seattle. Wherever it is that the Mariners play, they're out there. DJ hits the Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy intro, and everybody goes nuts. But Ben, I think you are back. I did hear you there for a second. Can you confirm? Nope. Oh, he's still working on something. While Ben holds up his finger at me. Nope, don't got you. I had you a second ago. I heard you laughing. And then we've lost you again. Now I can see you laughing, but I can't hear you laughing. Maybe I was just hearing you laugh because I wanted to hear you laugh. You know, I felt like Ben should be in the room with me. But the point we're getting at, I think, with this cover, right, is it tells you everything you need to know. It tells you a little bit about the story so that you can pick it up and immediately know what you're getting into. You see Rey, you see Leia. It's very colorful and dramatic in its own way. Lost the image because Ben has dropped himself out of the out of the call here. I'll bring it back as I talk. But you can see it's very dramatic, it's very colorful. You can see what's going on. But then in the middle of it, there's the little Kylo. So you still know, it gives you a sense of where they are in the time period. It gives you a sense of what the story is going to be. It's going to be Rey and Leia on a mission, on an adventure. And all the while, whether Ben is in the story or not, he's going to kind of be in the back of their minds. This is coming off of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and everything that went down between all of these characters in those two movies is going to linger large, regardless of what level of involvement Kylo Ren has in the story. Speaking of Ben's, you're back.
Yep.
You're back.
Finally.
You were about to tell us the secret of movie posters.
Was I? I don't remember that. I don't have any memory past 2 minutes ago.
All right. Well, in that case, let's move on from Star Wars Legacy to the next novel, Star Wars Eyes Like the Stars. Or I guess this is called Eyes Like Stars, a Star Wars romance novel by Ashley Poston. This is what they say on StarWars.com. Or I'll tell you that in just a second, seeing as I accidentally just closed the tab.
Well, that's
we're all doing great on this show tonight.
Yeah.
Here's what they say about Eyes Like Stars. New York Times bestselling author Ashley Poston is writing the first official Star Wars romance novel, Eyes Like Stars. New York Comic-Con got a first look at the dreamlike cover for the young adult novel, which features a couple in search of their happily ever after in the galaxy far, far away. The charming young adult romance, set about a year and a half before The Force Awakens, features all new characters, a mysterious artifact, and the fearsome First Order. Hits shelves summer 2026. Ben, a Star Wars romance novel.
Oh my God. Romance.
What do you think? How do you feel?
Kissing in Star Wars. Ew, why? I love for one, I love that this is happening. I love this book thing. I love number two, that certain people are just so angry about this, just so angry. It makes me happy. Some people's angry just makes me happy. But yeah, I mean, I think it's about time. And look, I kind of agree with Matthew Hardy in the chat, who says Lost Stars would like to have a word. Because you could definitely, like, in my head, Lost Stars is kind of a romance novel. It is. It's a big sweeping tale, but the core of it is like two people trying to make their lives work within the that story, the story of the original trilogy.
I appreciate how you stopped yourself from saying it's about two people trying to make love.
I mean, I could have said some other stuff too. And there's a lot of stuff in the book that is very much implied that I won't get into.
Well, it's not even implied in that one.
No, but like, this is like, I feel like they're leaning into this, which like, it's about time. There's been so many Star Wars books. Like it's amazing that we haven't gone into full on like embracing certain genres and, romance novels. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, I love romance novels and I've read thousands of them. Like, no, but I'll read this one. Like, hell yeah. Like this will be like the first official romance novel that I read because hell yeah. This is a really cool idea. I love the idea of just embracing that and going forward. And then also just the added bonus of like, it's not like Lost Stars. It's something in the First Order era, which I think is really cool. And doing that and doing something that Star Wars glosses over a lot, which is like focusing on normal people living in this crazy galaxy and trying to just, make love. That's the thing. Just trying to make love in a galaxy, make love, not war. And it's not easy. It's not easy in the real world, and it's not easy in a Star Wars galaxy.
It's time for some star love. We've had enough Star Wars. I honestly, like, they announced this, and to me, it was almost no different than any other announcement. Like, it's like, oh, interesting. They're doing that. Which is how I feel about just about every novel that they announce. And, it's varying levels of, oh, interesting. I like you. I can't admit to having read anything that I think is specifically classified as romance. I think it is. I've obviously read novels that have love stories in them, but I've never read something that is a romance novel. And so, like, I don't have strong opinions about that genre, but I look at this and go, oh, this is good that they are branching out beyond just what is expected, and they're trying something different. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But as always, as I always say, I would rather they try something new and original and outside the box than stick to the same safe thing over and over and over again. This was the point that got lost in my live action Visions point last week. Is I asked everybody, what would you rather have? Would you rather have one perfect thing or a bunch of pretty good? And everybody said a bunch of pretty good. And I was like, no, I want one perfect thing. This is what I mean. I want them to try different things, searching for that high, that rush you get when you see something you haven't seen before. That feeling that we all got when we first saw Star Wars. And so I look at okay, maybe this won't do it for me, but maybe it'll do it for somebody else. And maybe it will do it for me because this isn't a lens that I'm used to looking at Star Wars from. I'm not used to looking at it this way. And so maybe looking at the galaxy as through the eyes of a romance novel will make me go, oh, right, this is why I love just how versatile this galaxy, this storytelling arena can be. Or maybe I'll look at it and go, never do that again. That was awful. Like, that's also possible, but I'd rather they take the big swing and miss than give me a bunch of novels like, here's another book that could have, maybe have been classified as a Star Wars romance, The Princess and the Scoundrel.
Yes.
I didn't read that when it came out. I only read that earlier this year, and I really didn't like it because it played things so aggressively safe and was so painfully obviously an ad for the Star Cruiser Hotel that doesn't exist anymore. And I was like, so give me something that goes outside the box, like Eyes Like Stars, over something that it's so aggressively in the box, like The Princess and the Scoundrel, that it reads like advertising, which is basically what it was. No disrespect to the people that worked on that book. I know that a lot of hard work went into it, but it didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I think and it does kind of, it's kind of crazy how, number one, people are so adherent to like, or adverse to the idea of romance in Star Wars, or something that is explicitly, going in the direction of romance. And the fact that we've got so little romance in the last 10 years of Star Wars. And looking back on Star Wars, romance has been a part of Star Wars since the beginning. Like, who is she? Yeah, who is she? She's beautiful. Like, this whole thing. Like, I know it's the incest aside. Like, there's like people loving each other. Like, love, not hate. All this kind of stuff. Like, this is a part of Star Wars' lore, part of the Star Wars story from the very beginning. Like, Empire Strikes Back is a love story. It's Han and Leia getting together. That's a love story. It is straight up the dark and gritty Star Wars movie. Also, a sappy love song.
The very, very, very first trailer for Star Wars in 1976 includes the phrase, "It's a sprawling saga of rebellion and romance."
Yeah, exactly.
It's been there from the beginning. I don't want to dwell on the reaction to Star Wars going into the romance genre. I think that's so boring that people can't envision this universe that has played in literally every genre doing something like this. Like, that's so boring, and so they want to stay within the box. So let's not spend any more time on it.
Yeah, and for the record, if it's not your bag, that's fine. Like, if you don't want to read this, no one is forcing you. But I think there's a difference between, like,
Kathleen Kennedy is not going to come to your house and hold you down while making you read this book.
Read it. I'll read it to you.
Yeah, your Audible account is not going to be hacked, and you're going to be forced to listen to this over and over and over and over and over again. Like, it's not,
again,
none of that's going to happen.
Star Wars, big buffet. Just choose what you want. Don't be a dick to the staff. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm looking forward to checking this out when it comes out. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll suck. Who knows? Same thing that can be said for Legacy. Same thing can be said for Mandalorian and Grogu. Same thing can be said for Ahsoka season 2. Maybe it'll suck. Maybe it won't. Who knows? Let's see what else we got from New York Comic Con. Here's the possibly, look, we've been talking about iconic covers and iconic the sort of iconic stuff that you expect from Star Wars and Star Wars posters. Here's probably one of the most iconic book covers you'll ever see, and that is the art of the Mandalorian and Grogu, which, as you can see,
oh my gosh,
it's the movie's logo. It says the art of, and a red triangle in the corner says cover not final. Isn't that great? Look, I'm looking forward to another art of book when it comes out, and we've got another one to talk about in a minute. But first, though, let's bring on our third co-host, Chris. You made it.
Let's go, Blue Jays. We got the rally going.
5-1 in the bottom of the fourth out there in Seattle. Max Scherzer using his old man power at the age of 41, keeping the Blue Jays season alive and thriving.
Ben, just so you have context here, if I did my math right, the likelihood, just the statistical likelihood of the Dodgers and the Blue Jays playing in the World Series is like 1 in 920. Like, it's like you could be 1,000 years old and it could not happen. And we just need the Jays to pull this one out.
Yeah.
And then, tomorrow, whatever happens, go back to Toronto, win the last 2, or 1 if they can win tomorrow. And then the Dodgers just need 1 more win and they're in.
Yeah.
So we're so close to a 1 in 920 situation of these teams facing.
It's very, very close.
Oh
it's very, very possible.
Amazing.
The Blue Jays just need to hold on today.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it's a best 2 out of 3 from there. You just got to take 2 more, and that's eminently doable. And Dodgers seem to just be on a solemn march to the World Series.
Yeah,
no joy, no excitement, just a solemn march.
It's like somehow at the end of the regular season they were just resting. They're like, oh, we don't need to worry about things till October, and yeah, as soon as October hits, just bam, lights out. Oh my gosh, I'm assuming there's no Star Wars news this week, so that's why I'm on here talking about baseball.
Yeah, exactly. We're going in depth through the New York Comic-Con publishing panel that none of us were there for. We didn't have a chance to even be there. I miss the New York Comic-Con publishing panel. Take me back. Take me back to 2019.
Amazing.
Also, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong here. We'll go back to the panel here for a little bit. Was this announced there, or just we got more details about it? The Art of Andor was released, the complete series.
Being that I don't recall this being announced previously, and the fact that I famously never forget anything, and my memory is completely perfect. I'm going to say this was announced there.
Okay, let's go with that. It's another Phil Sostak joint. Covers the entire series, both seasons. Should be pretty good. Looking forward to flipping through that, as well as the Mando Grogu ones. They're both coming out next year. Andor in May, so right around the same time as Mando Grogu, the movie. Whereas the Art of the Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out in September, so a couple months after the movie. So hopefully they can cover the whole movie. Unlike the sequel trilogy ones, this I always loved this about the sequel trilogy Art of books, is they would sort of cover 2/3 of the movie, and then you'd pick up the book for the next movie, and it would start by covering the last third of the previous movie before covering the 2/3 of the actual movie that it was. Which means that we don't actually have like an Art of style book for the finale of Rise of Skywalker. So I am expecting that the Mando Grogu book will begin by giving us the art of the final third of the Rise of Skywalker. So that's what we got from New York Comic-Con. Also revealed, this is kind of fun. We got a new Star Wars manga kind of tying in with Star Wars Visions.
Nice.
Chris, do you know how to pronounce this?
Yeah, it's Tsukumo.
Tsukumo. All right, Star Wars Tsukumo, Star Wars Vision Tsukumo. It's published by Viz Media, and it takes the all-star creators of the latest Ultraman manga, and it tells a story of a lone Jedi Knight in the wake of Order 66 that's accompanied by a pair of droids that's going to a rumored droid's paradise and being pursued by the Empire. July 14th, 2026 is the release date. That sounds pretty freaking cool. Separate of the art style and the writers and everything, that's just a cool concept for a story. And then to tie it in with the visionsness of it all is pretty cool.
Is this the first Star Wars manga?
There have been others, but they're usually there were a couple of High Republic ones. And there have been some adaptations. Like I'm pretty sure there's a Lost Stars manga, and I picked up at Fan Expo last year and still have not read it. An adaptation of the Legends of Luke Skywalker book that's in manga form. So, Star Wars continuing to really play in the Japanese art style that's
awesome.
Got started with Visions Volume 1, has continued with all that stuff we just mentioned, and Celebration, and of course circling back to it with Visions 3 later this month. That's just around the corner.
I feel I might be wrong about this because I only live in America and not Japan, and if I live in both places I can make a better assessment of this. But I feel like even though like comic books are pretty popular in the United States, I feel like manga in Japan just is at another level than what comic books are in U.S. and like North America and the Western culture that we're familiar with. Like, manga is huge in Japan. It is huge. It's a huge part of pop culture, and there's a pipeline that exists there that doesn't really exist here. Like, you see some things created from comic books, like, you know, Marvel and DC are the biggest examples of it, but it's like the pipeline from comic books to movies and TV shows is really inside just a few IPs. It feels like,
right?
It's like there's just a few IPs where they that's their thing. They make comic book movies or TV shows. But in Japan, it's just really, really common. If a manga is popular, it becomes a TV show or a movie. It's just, and so many TV shows and movies just in general in Japan were mangas first. And so I find it very interesting with how that is. That they're Lucasfilm is just starting to dabble into it now when it's such a big thing over there. Like, I feel like with the amount of stuff that's been put out by Marvel and Dark Horse with comic books in North America, I'm kind of shocked that we've only had a handful of mangas come out in Japan for Star Wars. Kind of shocked.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, George talked openly about how influential Japanese film was on his movies. It's interesting that he didn't really venture into that at any point when he was in charge. Maybe it was an element of just, you know, he was in charge and he wanted to be the one overseeing everything and didn't want to, you know, do like an international partnership like that. But the current regime of Lucasfilm, whatever you may think of them, they seem have been really open to that sort of thing. And James Waugh, who's on the story group, again, whatever you may think of him, he's really kind of spearheaded these projects. And I think we can I think we have him to thank a lot for this, as well as, you know, on the publishing side, Michael Siglain and everybody over there. So
yeah. And again, big swings, big things that doing something that Star Wars has, obviously, like manga, they've dabbled in it, but like continuing to go into that and full force is great.
Imagine if like that same pipeline existed here with Lucasfilm, where like just it was just automatic. If there was a good comic book series, it was made into a TV show. Imagine what we would get if that was the case. I mean, we'd have a Republic show, we'd have a Legacy show, we'd have an Infinity show. Like, there'd just be so many.
Yeah, the High Republic would all be adapted. Yeah,
and the fact that they're investing so much in that Star Wars Visions name brand, if you will, like we're getting the Ninth Jedi, we're getting Star Wars Visions Presents, all this kind of stuff. Like, they really see a lot. They clearly like have a lot of confidence in like Visions as its own franchise.
Yeah, exactly. And I fully expect it to continue. You know, we'll probably get another season of Visions announced shortly after this one. Maybe it'll go full global again and be more like Volume 2, but I think they do definitely want to keep working with the studios from Volumes 1 and 3 and continue to explore what other talent exists in Japan. And that'll be great for Volume 5, and that'll lead right into Volume 6, which will be live action, the one that we've all been waiting for ever since last week. Yeah.
It's gotta happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, right, Hannah, who's not here?
And defend yourself.
All right, that's enough of New York Comic Con. Good stuff there. Looked like a fun panel. New York Comic Con in general looked like a fun time. As I've said every year since I last went in 2019, I was sad not to be there, seeing all of the posts on social media from there. It looked like everybody was having a grand time at the Javits Center. Let's jump right to Ask the SWU, because I feel like the news stories this week, nothing too in depth. A little bit of talk about Starfighter, but Mia Goth and Sean Levy both talked about it, but they said nothing. They said nothing of consequence. So we'll skip that.
in the social media space, we are hard up for those sound bites and those stuff. Like Jeremy Allen White basically confirms, or at least somebody on Good Morning America says, "Oh, you're playing Road to the Hut," then, and doesn't deny it. Like that's confirmation. We're running with that.
Yeah, I also okay. We'll talk about Jeremy Allen White for a second because he was on Good Morning America. He was asked about being in The Mandalorian and Grogu, and they did mention that he's playing Jabba the Hutt's son. He had this line. I don't know if he was making a joke because Jeremy is if for anybody that's watched The Bear, he's very capable of doing comedy. But he also didn't seem to be doing jokes in this interview. He seemed to be being very serious. It was mainly about the Springsteen biopic that he's in. But he said this about getting the part. He says, and then I kind of discovered in the moment almost the weight of the character I was voicing.
Yeah.
And I want to know if he's being literal.
I think he knew what he was doing there.
He's playing a hut.
We saw what you did there, Jeremy Allen.
Is he talking about the metaphorical weight of playing, the descendant of Jabba the Hutt's son, or is he talking about the literal weight of playing a hut? I don't know. Good old. I'm glad. I like Jeremy Allen White. I'm glad he's
neither. I think this is an out of universe statement.
Yeah.
You didn't know, like, I think a lot of people, you have to be like a pretty in-depth Star Wars fan to know who Ride of the Hutt is. Like, Ride of the Hutt is definitely a few layers.
But you would know, you would know who Jabba the Hutt is. And if you said you're playing Jabba the Hutt's son, you go, okay, that's a pretty important character.
Maybe, but is that how it was explained? That's my question.
Because in the interview they just ask him one question about playing Jabba the Hutt's son, and he gives a sort of a long, winding answer that ends with this. That mainly just sort of talked about how cool it thinks it is that he gave the standard Star Wars actor answer, which is, I'm really looking forward to watching this with my kids. Which great, love that for you. No problem with that answer.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is, like, he just didn't know who Ride of the Hutt was.
No, I doubt he did.
I mean, even if he knows him as Jabba the Hutt's son, it could be like a new character.
99% of people in the world right now, if you tell them, hey, you're playing Road to the Hut, they'd be like, Road to the what?
Do you think Dave Filoni made him sit down and watch the Clone Wars movie?
How do you play Road to the Hut?
Jeremy, you have to know this. You have to understand the backstory of this character.
I don't know how you can play that character and not watch that movie.
Oh, I'm sure you can. And
it turns out Jeremy Allen White is very method. He hasn't showered. He hasn't showered in a month to prepare for the role. So he can be extra stinky.
Listen, that's just because he was sick. He doesn't normally smell like that. He was sick. Give the guy a break. We all smell when we're sick.
Exactly.
And he comes in the studio to record his lines. He's like, dude, do you know this is a voiceover role? You're not actually going to be on set.
And Pedro Pascal is standing there holding his pillow that he uses to stand in for Grogu. And he's like, somebody get me a nose clip, or somebody get me a helmet so I can wear a helmet and not have to stand next to this guy. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, let's get to Ask the SWU. Let's get to that stuff.
Love it.
All right, we'll start with some questions from the Discord, starting with this one from Gills Tur 10. He says, quote, one era I feel is seriously underexplored is the period between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Beyond the opening crawl, we're given almost no real insight into how Count Dooku and Darth Sidious laid the groundwork for the Separatist movement, or how they stirred unrest across the galaxy in the lead up to the Clone Wars. I'd love to see how Dooku first crossed paths with key figures like General Grievous and Asajj Ventress. Her backstory is partially covered in Dooku Jedi Lost, the audio drama. But there's still so much left to uncover. The formation of the Separatist Council, Dooku's political manipulation, the recruitment of planetary systems, all deserve deeper exploration, similar to how Rebels and Rogue One fleshed out the origins of the Rebel Alliance. What do you all think? Are there other aspects of this era that you'd want to see explored? What do we think? The era between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Are we due for some more exploration there?
I think there's an Andor. I think there's an Andor-esque show. in the waning years between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, like in the lead up to that. And because I think, as we learned in the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, not all the Separatists were bad guys. And I think, like they had some real legitimate concerns about the Republic and, seceded from it. I think there's a lot of political machinations going on, obviously, at the behest of Sheev Palpatine, but nonetheless, very interesting stuff that we really never got that much into in the movies or even the animated series. So, like, getting into that and figuring out what's going on there, I think there's a political thriller in there somewhere. I think you could really things and tell some stories there with not even, you don't even have to, you could have Dooku just not be in it and just like tell, there's probably tons of characters that we don't even know about that were, just like with good old Cassian Andor that played pivotal roles in that era.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to show about Aura Singh. It doesn't need any other characters. It can just be Aura Singh the whole time. That's all I care about.
So what I'll say about that era is I think the reason it hasn't been explored all that much is because that it's not all that exciting. Like, you can get some like one-off adventures with Anakin and Obi-Wan, being trained, which we have gotten, but there isn't the grandiose scale that we expect from Star Wars that really happens in that era. Obviously maybe I'm not, thinking big enough, but you can certainly envision some stuff. But even like you guys are talking, or Ben, you're talking about the political thriller side of things. Is it a thriller? Is it like, it's not life and death the way Andor is. Like Andor, part of the thrill is if they get caught, that is the end for them, quite literally. And I just don't think that the separatist movement, as we understand it, is not that. It is, basic, boring coalition building amongst disgruntled systems. And everything we need to know about what's going on, I think has already been implied and suggested in stories that already exist. I think the Dooku episodes of Tales of the Jedi go a long way to showing the corruption of the Republic and how it's failing its peoples, and Count Dooku's feelings about how that is all playing out, I think, is matched by a lot of other people's feelings. I think other people feel the same way that he does, and we can just sort of extrapolate from there. I'm not saying they shouldn't try to come up with something that's really exciting, come up with something really interesting and engaging in this era, but I just don't, it doesn't have the same draw that between all the other eras have, or even, like going back pre-Phantom Menace, when you get into High Republic, Acolyte, Old Republic, Dawn of the Jedi stuff, that's way, way, way before the movies. It's kind of in a weird zone of between the prologue, which is episode 1, and the first real chapter of the story, which is episode 2. And so there's stuff that can happen. You can definitely come up with stories in that era, but the key beats, I don't think necessarily lend themselves to really, really interesting stories the same way they intrinsically do between all the other movies.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
That's why I'm only really half joking when I bring up Aura Singh. That's the type of show that needs to exist in that era. Like, it has to be character based. It has to be on interesting characters. It can't be plot, because, like you said, the plot is in kind of this dead zone. There's a reason why on screen we skip 10 years because the 10 years are skippable in the grand scheme of what's happening in the galaxy. But what's happening to the characters could be interesting if it's written well. And so absolutely, that's what you need. Is there's so many good characters that can have really long story arcs in there in those 10 years. I mean, you could go into some of the individual members of the Jedi Council and have like long story arcs about them. I mean, imagine a Mace Windu show set in that era would be very interesting.
For sure.
Going all about, his like vapad use and, how he's like skirting on the dark side, but not on the dark side. And why does this guy really have a purple lightsaber? What's the in-universe explanation? Like, there's a lot of like, Shatterpoint-esque stuff that can happen with that. Which could be very interesting. I definitely think that was interesting. Distracted by baseball.
Yeah. Me too.
I know. I looked at you and I'm like, I can pause because you're also not paying attention. Ben's just like, what is going on? What is it? We don't get Canadian baseball down in Mississippi. But yeah. I character based. It's got to be character based. There's so many great characters that exist in that era. Do it.
And to your point, and saying like, yeah, probably the reason there's time skips between any of the movies is because usually it's what the creators, whether George or somebody else, decided there's not much going on there. I'm going to skip to the good part. But but you have like the biggest time jump between the movies, or one of the biggest time jumps, between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. You have essentially 19 years where nothing happened, but as Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Bad Batch, Andor, Rebels, Jedi Fallen Order, like all this stuff has taught us over the last 30 years or so. A lot happened in between those times, and it wasn't the big bombastic the wars happening, but it was small character stuff that was meaningful to those characters, and in Andor's case, like Cassian Andor becoming who he was, where he can be the person at that time when the going gets good or bad, depending on how you look at it, in Rogue One and New Hope.
Yeah, the difference though, Ben, in my mind, is like the what's happening between 3 and 4 is just intrinsically so much more interesting because you are figuring out how to rebel under a fascist regime. Like that's why those stories are so interesting. Whereas between 1 and 2, it's the twilight of a democracy, it's the twilight of a republic, but the actual sort of action doesn't really begin until episode 2. The stuff before that's all kind of planning, and the planning isn't as interesting, I think, as the action. But go ahead. Get in there.
I'm going to agree with you in the sense is that it's definitely, if you do commit to like, we're going to do Andor, but it's before Attack of the Clones, like it needs to be, it's going to be more in the weeds. It's going to be more nuance, and it's going to be more, I think even more so relevant to our time in a sense that watching something that is good fall apart and become something that is bad. And I think that is what's happening to the Republic at that period of time. It is slowly becoming the Empire. The Clone Wars illustrates this so well in so many different ways that the Empire came along long before they rebranded, long before they got the cog and they got the Galactic Empire. It was the Empire. The Republic was the Empire. It was doing Empire things long before even the war started. There's a reason the Separatists were in, because they were literally being controlled by a Sith Lord. Palpatine was there. He was the Sith Lord. The Dark Lord of the Sith was in control of the Galactic Republic and the Senate. Like, no crap that they're doing bad stuff sometimes. And so like I like that idea of like exploring that and seeing like, okay, well, how does this relate to our own world when you have bad leaders and corrupt people in control of this, and how this is deteriorating in a very fast manner in ways that are not necessarily objective or obvious to people that are in a privileged position. What is the normal person that's living on a separatist world? How do they deal with this? How would someone be radicalized against the Republic? And ultimately, I think that's something that you could tell over a long period of time of like someone becomes a separatist, and then maybe further down the line they become part of the Rebel Alliance, and that's a whole other story.
I do think, Chris, you hit the nail on the head with sort of like a bounty hunter story might be the best story for this era, because that allows you to dip into a lot of these things that we've talked about. You can have Jedi adventures because the Jedi might have to work with the bounty hunters, or they might be opposed to the bounty hunters. You can deal with people who are, helping set up the early iterations of the Separatist alliance, because they're doing that sort of on the down low. You can see people who are being left behind by the Republic because they're having to turn to the black market. Like that is probably thinking about it, that's probably the best in to this era, is to not focus on the big picture Jedi Republic storyline, and to instead try and do something that is more on the ground, which is something that Star Wars has excelled at over the years. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the way in. All right. Good question, Gilster. Good question. All right. Next question comes from Vlad Sander, who says, so I'll ask the question. If you were to cast Mara Jade, who would you cast? Vlad says, my fan cast is Karen Gillan. Not only is she a natural redhead, she has already been in a Disney property. She was Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy. She was also Amy Pond in Doctor Who. All right. Mara Jade fan cast.
I think for a while it was like Karen Gillan or Scarlett Johansson for many, many years. I think if it happened now, it would be Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah. That's good. That'd be good casting. I'd be happy to have her in Star Wars in any capacity. Ben, what are you thinking?
It's funny. I want to steer clear of this person so bad, not because I don't like them, but I really do. But because they've been in so many things, and they are such an iconic person, they are known for things. But I truly feel like Scarlett Johansson would kill it as Mara Jade. Like she would. Like I really do. Like I think she would be great. Obviously, it depends on how are you doing it. Do you need someone that's younger or older, and things, and then obviously I'm thinking like, oh, only redheaded actresses. Like people can change their hair color. Gosh dang it! You don't have to just go that. But I think her demeanor, her attitude. I think her ability. I think I could see that Mara Jade in my head from reading Heir to the Empire and all those books translates into, I think, a good performance from her. So I've got to go with that. But obviously an unknown person we've never heard of. That would be my ideal answer, of course.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about this because all the names you guys have thrown out there, they make sense. I guess this question is spurred. I guess that you guys talked about this in a week that I wasn't here, that there was some speculation that Amy Allen might be Mara Jade, and that
very thin ice speculation.
Flynn Gray is Luke's long lost son, which is stupid, but I low key kind of love it. There was always rumors going into The Force Awakens that somebody was going to be the long lost descendant of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I was so on board with that idea, and they didn't do it. So like you guys have said, it all depends on what era are you casting for, and I feel like we've named every redheaded actress in Hollywood.
It's so hard for me not to think of just a redheaded actress. I'm trying.
Well, yeah.
So
the one that hasn't been named, and this would be if you were doing her in her like Emperor's Hand era, which I guess you would sort of re-envision as sort of like a top tier Inquisitor. Sadie Sink from Stranger Things.
Yeah, I thought.
I'm like, there's only so many. I can't think of another one. She's the only one I can think of. I'm like, all right, we got to go young in the timeline. Have her play it, but then the advantage of that is you get another 30-40 years of Mara Jade stories if you want, and just get her to come back every 5 to 7 years after her main story is done.
I mean, again, I think to throw in someone not in the same hair color conversation,
right? Yeah.
I could see Brie Larson potentially.
Sure.
Disney obviously loves Brie Larson. Then I think going again back to the hair casting, if you're gonna go to an older Mara Jade, maybe Nicole Kidman could do an older Mara Jade.
Here's somebody who could do it. Who, again, if we're sticking strictly to already having the right color hair, and is already tied in very, 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 very strongly with the Star Wars franchise, who could even direct her own movie.
900.
Bryce Dallas Howard. There you go.
she's definitely a good actress as well. She's been in a lot
could
of
do
things. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I don't know. Did we answer the questions? I don't know.
We just named every redhead in Hollywood.
That we could think of, yeah.
I don't know how effective that was. Oh, yeah, that's why I said Brie Larson is the only one that I could easily come up with that I think, to my knowledge, has not played a character with red hair.
There you go.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I've seen.
I suppose it's possible. All right. Let's actually, I just thought of another one. not redhead.
That's helpful.
Not redhead, but
Creative.
this is somebody who was almost in Starfighter. Mikey Madison. I feel like she could play a much scrappier version.
From Anora?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I feel like she could play a much scrappier version of Mara Jade. I feel like some of these castings could do a very like refined Mara Jade, who's a little bit, who is kind of put together evil. I feel like Mikey could do the. Is it Mikey or Mickey? I mean, she could do the scrap. She could do the scrappier version of Mara Jade that will beat you up in an alley.
That's on like the edge of my knowledge of film. Like it's way over there. Like that information just because of
Ms. Madison, I believe, could play the role very well.
Well, okay, so if we're talking about like interesting scenarios and people that are very like get a lot of buzz on the internet, because she's certainly someone that gets a lot of buzz on the internet. Since I know who she is, even though I haven't seen her movies. What would happen to the internet if Sydney Sweeney was Mara Jade? What would happen to the internet?
I would quit the internet that day, I think.
Nothing against Sydney Sweeney. She just has she's just very popular.
Yeah.
Let's envision an even worse outcome for the internet. And here's my pitch for someone who has already pissed people off by playing another famous redhead in a Marvel movie, Zendaya.
Yeah.
I would be so happy if that happened.
Bring it.
Which, for the record, would be totally fine with me, but a lot of people on the internet would be big mad.
Yeah, you know what? Just because it would piss off the right people. Do it.
I would have no problem with that at all. And she's obviously amazing. She's in so many amazing movies. Spider-Man, Dune, Euphoria is one of the best TV shows ever made. Like lots of good stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, let's keep moving on here. I think we answered your question, Vlad. I think so. I think we got
solved it.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go with this question from Joel. Let's get to a Joel question, and then we'll wrap things up. And if this is one that you've already answered on a show that I missed that didn't get deleted from the notes, Ben, stop me while I'm reading it. Joel writes, Hey Underworld, I've been thinking lately. Ahsoka season 1 introduced the idea of events happening in another galaxy with Peridia, which I hope gets explored even more in Ahsoka season 2. So here's an odd question. What if they announced a Star Wars movie set entirely in another galaxy with no recognizable aliens, planets, or people, where the only familiar event or element might be a lightsaber? Would that be taking it too far? So original that it might not even feel like Star Wars anymore. How would you connect it to the Star Wars universe without using classic imagery or iconography that we're used to? And if such a story were to be told, should there be some tie back to our main galaxy far, far away? Love the podcast as always, Joel Davis. P.S. As a sort of side note, should episodes 10 through 12 and one of the major story plot points of the post Rise of Skywalker narrative be our heroes going to other galaxies and dealing with enemies connected to the ancient past and the Force? So Star Wars movie set entirely in another galaxy with with no recognizable aliens, planets, or people.
This is a great thought experiment because we've actually had the conversation at least once, probably more than once over the many years of this show, what makes a Star Wars thing a Star Wars thing? Like, what is the je ne sais quoi of Star Wars? What is the essence of Star Wars? Is it the Force? Is it lightsabers? Is it the common characters? Is it the Skywalkers? What is it? What is it? And this question kind of exposes our thoughts on what makes Star Wars Star Wars, because you can certainly say that Star Wars doesn't have to be in the Star Wars galaxy for it to be Star Wars, because there are extragalactic things in Star Wars. There are other galaxies other than the main galaxy in Star Wars, and that's considered Star Wars. So it's something else. It's not just being in that galaxy far, far away that makes it Star Wars. So it's got to be something else. But then that brings up a fascinating question of what is it? And I think the answer of what would make this film okay, or project okay and fit, kind of is the same answer as the answer to the question of what makes Star Wars to you. Like, it's the same question. And for me, I think the first things I could, spend a lot of time thinking about this and come up with varying answers and more complex answers. But the first thing that I think about when just going through it in my head is, honestly, it is vibes. There's a vibe to Star Wars. There's a certain, I think, concept of this is the future, but it doesn't feel like the future. It feels like the past, and there is somebody small fighting for something bigger than themselves. Like, I think that to me is like the vibe of Star Wars, and everything has that vibe. And I think if you did that, you could do something that's in a different galaxy, that doesn't have the Force, that doesn't have lightsabers, doesn't have any characters we know, yet could have a Star Wars label and not seem weird.
So the closest thing we have to this is there's sort of two things that are closest. One would be Visions, which uses all of the Star Wars iconography, but eschews the canon. And it sounds like what Joel is proposing is essentially the opposite, where the canon still exists, whether it gets referenced or not, but it still exists, but we're ditching all the iconography. The other one is Skeleton Crew, where, look, Ad Atten, that doesn't look anything like a Star Wars planet, right? Like, that is a planet that has been shut away from the galaxy for so long that it has essentially become Earth in its own way, right down to the suburbs and everything about it in terms of its look and feel. It's, it's Earth 2020 or 24, 25, like it's way out in the future. So that's sort of those are sort of two comparables. I think this is sort of, I do agree that vibes is ultimately what it comes down to. I do suspect what's more likely to happen than just saying, oh, we're going to do a story set completely in the other galaxy with no ties back. I think more likely is in some story, be it Ahsoka, be it anything else, will be introduced to a new planet that has a really interesting sort of history and lore and look of its own that will then be spun off. You'll get kind of the backdoor pilot scenario. And then in that case, then I think you can just do away with all the stuff that we know, because the link back to what we know exists. It's there, that this planet was in Ahsoka season 3 or the Mandalorian and Grogu 4 or whatever. And then you can do a story there and have fun with it and try to answer that question of what makes something Star Wars without Darth Vader, lightspeed, blasters, as we know them. But I mean, looking at what we did see at Peridia, I do think that this other galaxy, at least the one that we see, it's going to have more in common with the galaxy that we know of than we might think, and things that we think of as being unique to our quote unquote Star Wars galaxy actually originated elsewhere, like the Night Sisters and their approach to the Force through magic might actually be how they approach the Force in another galaxy, as opposed to being something that is wholly unique to Dathomir and the Night Sisters, which is what we assumed when we saw them for the first time.
Right.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, no, you're making a good points here. I think because you go back and think, okay, what makes Star Wars Star Wars? What is the thing? And obviously, if you look at the history, the real world history, you look at it evenly and logically, you understand that, like, okay, George, there wasn't a lot of things. There's a lot of things that George obviously took from other things that already existed, as have many storytellers done before. There's rarely many new ideas under the sun these days, or even 40 years ago or 50 years ago, as it's coming up on. So George, I think, did what he could, and in his genius was not just making up things, but remixing things and making them in his own way and putting them all together in one universe. I think what makes Star Wars such an interesting place and lends itself more to the kind of storytelling that we see now, as opposed to other franchises, is that it has this rich universe where it's not just, another story might be like, oh, somebody has a lightsaber. The whole thing revolves around a laser sword and how cool this is. But Star Wars is more than that. Star Wars has the Force. It has lightsabers. It has this used future universe where it's high tech, but it's also, used and broken, and all these different things. As Chris said, like vibes, like the vibes of Star Wars is something that you can't. It's hard to replicate that, and everyone knows that. You can say it's Star Wars mixed with this, like that's a movie pitch. Like you can take that. Everyone knows that. So you take that forward and go like, well, anytime anybody comes on board to a Star Wars project, there is these different things. There's the Force, there's lightsabers, there's blasters that they want to use. They want to use all the tools in the toy box. You have creators that are like Tony Gilroy that come on board and they're not as interested in that. They just want to tell a good story. And you get things like Andor that are using only some of those elements. But ultimately, the whole point of putting something in Star Wars in that universe is because it's got the vibes, it's got those elements, it's got blasters, it's got all this stuff, it's got this iconography that people connect with. So when you take all that away, you have to kind of back up and go like, okay, what is the point of this? Why are we setting this in the Star Wars galaxy, but it doesn't have the Force, it doesn't have lightsabers, it doesn't have blasters, it's another galaxy? Again, that's not a rhetorical question. It doesn't have to be rhetorical. It can be, well, maybe there's this thing. Maybe in another galaxy, they call the Force something else, and they have different powers, and they have laser rings instead of lightsabers, or something weird that we don't know about. Yeah. There's a million other things you could do. I think that's your hook. It has to be something else. It can't just be the absence of something. It has to be the addition of something new and different, I think. And that's where Star Wars has thrived in many ways, of introducing new cultures, new ways of looking at the Force and looking at the Jedi and looking at all this stuff. I think it could work. And one of the most interesting parts of Ahsoka to me is the idea of like different galaxies. Obviously, the universe, both in the Star Wars universe and in reality, is infinite. So it makes sense that there's other stuff out there, but the idea of exploring that, very interesting, and could be used in further storylines. But I think it just, you have to, there has to be a point to it. You have to actually have something, things like, James Mangold is like talking about how like he wants to do his movie in that time period way, way back in the day, because it's not connected to anything. He can do whatever he wants. And that's a very things, but it's still going to have Jedi. It's going to be about the foundations of the Jedi Order. So it's going to be dealing with that kind of stuff. So it's not going to be devoid of all that. So yeah, I think you could do a lot with other galaxies, but also it's still the Star Wars galaxy. Let's be frank. Like it's all Star Wars.
Yeah. I think there's an emergent property of something that Star Wars can kind of hang its hat on that is forming now, which is interesting. So right now, aesthetics, there's a lot of things that are being put into the study of aesthetics now that we've had over 100 years of film and multimedia. And one of the aesthetics that people are kind of putting a pinpoint on is the idea of retrofuturism, or very specifically cassette futurism, which is a form of retrofuturism that's really like 1970s, 1980s futurism, as opposed to more of a classical retrofuturism, which would be more of a 1920s to 1960s futurism. And Star Wars is very much that. And when I was watching Andor, for example, I was very acutely aware of how tight the aesthetic of the design of Andor was. One of the reasons why Andor is such a great show is that all of the designs of the sets and the props fit within a very narrow range. And that narrow range is science fiction in the 1970s and 1980s. And that's cool because it obviously has been being done intentionally. Because if you just do science fiction to do science fiction, you're going to be now blending 3 or 4 different eras of science fiction together. You're going to have the modern era, which is kind of like how Marvel does its science fiction. And then you're going to have that 70s, 80s cassette. Then you're going to have that retrofuturism going all the way back as far as Metropolis and the 1920s. And so I think why this is an emergent property is something else, which is the fact that there's a word, and it's a beautiful word, and I don't remember it, unfortunately. But there's a concept of being nostalgic for a memory that you don't actually have, that you never experienced. And the reason why is because there are now all this media that takes place in the 70s, 80s, 90s that is still saturated and still people have access to. And so they almost have a memory of the 70s and 80s and 90s, kind of almost in a stronger way to have how people had a memory of the 50s when they weren't around in the 50s because of all the 50s retro films and TV shows like Happy Days and American Graffiti and such. And so, but I think it's even stronger now. And so what's interesting is now you have this strong cassette nostalgia where whether or not you were around in the 80s or early 90s before digital media took over, whether or not you were around, so many people have this nostalgia and desire for things that are analog, things that are pre-digital, things that are pre-internet. And you have this concept of, oh my gosh, like a camcorder or, you know, a mixtape or a Walkman are considered just like really interesting and fascinating. People have this nostalgia for it, either if they experienced it or if they didn't. And so what's interesting is Star Wars, in its futurism, in its science fiction, uses aesthetics that are very, very close to that. The stolen data tapes. It's a tape. It's a cassette. And so
love that.
I feel like if Star Wars continues to lean into the Andor aesthetic and even plays it up a little bit more, I feel like they're going to capture that nostalgia people have for the era they may or may not have experienced, which is an emergent kind of genre of film and television that's going to have this huge demand that's just going to keep increasing. And I think that's going to kind of, that can actually pinpoint Star Wars and make Star Wars Star Wars, is it's the aesthetic of Star Wars is anything that is 70s and 80s sci-fi. That looks like it was sci-fi that came out in the 70s, 80s, but it's still with the modern, you know, digital film techniques. Like I think that's the emergent thing that Star Wars can lean into that can then tie it together and make it a cohesive thing, even when the galaxy it's in is not cohesive. The era of time it's in is not cohesive. The characters are not cohesive. The powers that they have access to is not cohesive. Nothing else can be cohesive as long as they stick to that cassette futurism and lean into that nostalgia for the 70s to 80s to maybe early 90s. I think you can make Star Wars that, and you can still make a thing where it has that vibe. That's the vibe.
I mean, that's Skeleton Crew right to its very core. Like that's
bam.
That's right there.
Might I add too? Actually, I didn't even say what my actual point was. The whole thing, I was just leading up, and then I got really lost behind Star Wars defining and how Star Wars can do it. But I forgot to talk about the actual psychological reason why this is a thing and then should continue to be a thing. And that is, we as human beings, especially if we were born in an era where the current technology was still forming and wasn't quite here yet, we have, I think, a massive whiplash from everything being virtual and there not being anything tactile and tangible in our lives when it comes to technology. So there's nothing tactile and tangible about a flat screen TV or an iPad or a phone. Like, it's literally just a screen. You're literally just seeing a window that you can either interact with by tapping on the window or just looking at the window into another reality, into a virtual reality. We have lost the ability to interact with technology in a tactile way. There's no dials to turn. There's no buttons to press. There's no looking at the aesthetic design of a piece of technology. None of that exists anymore. And I think we have just massive whiplash. And I think that's where this nostalgia is coming from and where this yearning is coming from. Is we're yearning for an era when technology, it still did things that were magical, but the magic box actually looked like something. You could actually do things in life to interact with it other than just tapping on a piece of glass. And I think that if Star Wars continues to show on screen, depict people interacting with technology that's more than just a screen or a virtual reality headset, I think all of those light up buttons on the Falcon or the lightsaber that you push the button and it turns on and you're holding this really beautiful, intricately designed, unique handle, hilt, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What's the better word for that? I think that because we don't actually have that anymore in our world, I think that's the escapism that Star Wars can provide that gets us engaged. It gets our appreciation for aesthetics and art engaged in a way that we're not engaged outside of film and television. And I think Star Wars has done an amazing job of that because it's coming out of the era where everything was like that and it's just emulating reality. And then I think they need to continue that. They need to keep that going. Like, I think Marvel doesn't do that as much. I think other science fiction doesn't do that as much. More modern science fiction, they're just pushing the technology as far as they can. Like, technology to them is a hologram, and then you're pushing buttons on the hologram, which is, again, that same problem of you're not interacting with anything tactile and tangible anymore. Whereas if Star Wars keeps that tangibility to their props and to how they depict people interaction with the Star Wars universe, then I think we're going to tap into that constantly, tap into that psychological need that we have to see that and to think about it and to imagine it.
I'll just say, like, on the Marvel side of things, like, what's one of the most popular and successful Marvel things in the last 5 years? Loki. And the TVA is like, as you're describing what you're talking about, I'm like, oh, that's exactly that. And I think that part of the reason that shows succeed is it's tapping into that same thing that you're talking about. And Skeleton Crew may not have had the same high levels of viewership as some of the other shows, but I do think for the people that watched it, I think there's a warmth there that people feel towards that show. They feel really warmly about it, and it's probably because it's tapping into exactly what you're talking about, the combination of the nostalgia of childhood and going on that adventure, along with that sort of tactile future that is not just I pressed the button and then the thing worked. Like technology back in the it like you said, the magic box looked like a magic box.
Imagine I've had this need. I've had this strange what's the word? Impulse. I've had this strange impulse for years now where I want to like flip switches in my car to do something. Like I'm driving my car and now modern cars, the newer the car is, the more likely it is that you literally have just a giant touchscreen in your car and you control everything through the touchscreen.
You're not even turning a key necessarily.
You're not even turning a key. And it's like, And I feel, even driving older cars, I feel this need to have like switches in the car, like it's the cockpit of a Star Wars spaceship, and I control something by, like, you know, pushing a giant red button or that's blinking, or like, you know, taking switches and flipping them on and off and messing with them. Like I just am driving and I feel this need to do this impulse and itch to do this, and you know, I think that's the thing, is like we need that fidget of something to do. And you know, I have this, you know, desire to like take the most modern like AI technology, but like put it into like boxes and devices that like have a weight to them and have a color to them, and like actually look like something when they're not on. And so I think Star Wars is an amazing opportunity as an art form to be a playground for that, to continue to actually create props that, you know, have a look to them and have an artistic design and aesthetic to them. Like I think that it's amazing that exists, and I think that it should continue to exist. And I think that it will continue to also inspire people to be creative in life too, and to actually, you know, make things with their hands and like make things because they see it on screen and they emulate it.
Yeah, I mean that's part of what George always set out to do with people, is inspire them, and inspiration comes in every possible way, whether that's, you know, leaving your uncle's farm or going and building something pretty cool. Just real quick on the postscript from Joel about episodes 10 through 12, and then the post Rise of Skywalker storylines. The big part of the story being, he thinks big part of the story should be the characters going to other galaxies. Yeah, either going to other galaxies or other galaxies coming to them. One of the most interesting things that Star Wars ever did was the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Whatever you think of how that story actually played out, that's an interesting concept, and it's about time that something like that happens in the movies and the shows, and it seems like we're maybe heading that direction already with Ahsoka. So
yeah,
there's that.
Absolutely.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Excellent questions, folks. Thank you for submitting them on Discord. Make sure you join the Discord and get your questions in for next week's show, and we will talk more about them then. But for now, that is where we're going to leave things, and that's where we're going to begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Some combination of us will be back same time, same place next week to talk about whatever else is going on in the Star Wars galaxy. It's Ben's brain. Let's be honest. It's always going to be Ben's brain. Ben's brain's always going to be
my
here
brain. My brain will always be here. Always.
Exactly.
Whatever else shows up, who knows?
Ben, thank you as always for hosting. Hope you take plenty of time this week to start building that Kylo Ren costume for Halloween.
Yeah, I guess I'm obligated now, contractually obligated to be Kylo Ren for Halloween. Not that I'm complaining. So sounds good to me. That helmet, pretty easy to take off. At least you can take it off. I don't have the right hair, nor the stature to pull off a good Adam Driver. So I think I'll just leave the helmet on and let the theater of the mind take over. But yeah, should be a good Halloween. Looking forward to it, guys, and see you next week.
I think if you dyed your hair like jet black, Ben, and grew it out a little bit, you could pull it off.
I would love to do that. I would love to grow my hair out just to see the look on my family's face. Just to see. That would be hilarious.
We couldn't convince you to grow the Lonnie mustache. Maybe we could convince you to grow your hair out and dye it black like Kylo Ren, Ben Solo.
You never know. My brain could show up and there could be stuff on this face. You never know.
Wow.
There we go. Chris, we're glad you're able to make it. Thank you for joining us. Anything you want to plug?
Follow me on social media at Seek3PO. I don't know what that means anymore, but you can.
There we go. We will be back. As I said, some combination of us will be back next week. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. That way you can listen and or watch that show when it comes out. If you like what we do and want to give us a little bit of support financially, you can become a channel member. It's like a tip jar. Just, throw some change in there and maybe we'll do another pancake party someday. And join us in the Discord in between shows to keep the conversation going. And make sure you follow at the SWU on social media. And check out the other programming on the Star Wars Underworld Network, like the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and the Tractor Beam. That is it for everybody here at the Star Wars Underworld. That's Ben, that's Chris, that's Hannah who's not here. My name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.